All right. Hey, happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cocktails and Conversation. I'm your co-host, Heather Holdridge.
And I'm Larry Nguyen.
And this is a special day because I am actually in Boston. I've got a college reunion situation happening this weekend.
Fifth
And so,
reunion for Heather. So
yes, I look horrible if it's my fifth
yeah,
reunion, by the way.
that's been the topic of conversation at the reunion. Have you seen Heather?
Oh my God. Oh, that's going to be a rough cocktail hour, let me tell you, which is why I'm starting here. But it also means I don't have access to my bar. So in desperation,
We've been
I
there,
have,
Heather. We've
I
been
have,
there.
listen, it's actually glass bottles, but we're going with
Oh, class.
vodka and, some kind of mixer situation. But Larry, I think in honor and as a Harvard grad yourself,
Yes,
you are repping Boston on both our behalf. So what do we got?
I am. This is actually a fun cocktail. It's called the Harvard cocktail. And it's basically a Manhattan variant. 2
Mhm.
ounces of brandy, cognac, 1 ounce of sweet vermouth,
Mm,
a spoon, a little bar spoon of grenadine. You could use bootleg grenadine or actually use the real thing, which is pomegranate syrup. Use the real
okay.
thing. It tastes so much
Okay.
better. And you just put those things together and I'll start doing it and mix it. And then you strain it and then it's a twist. So that's it. Great drink. You should try it if you got the ingredients. The pomegranate syrup, this grenadine is the hard part for most people. Like the real thing.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure you have
so
the red stuff.
the red stuff? Okay.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
grenadine that you get at some like shitty bar that.
Right. No, I like roses, like the old school, old-timey
Oh yeah,
stuff
that's
from when we
okay.
were
Yeah,
kids.
but it is basically food colored high fructose corn syrup. So
Well, you know, the more you drink, the more you forget that that's what you're consuming. So, meanwhile, this looks like I'm on vacation in an all expenses paid resort. So
well,
that's
there are worse places to be. And how's Boston?
it's delightful. In fact, it's 80 degrees.
Wow.
And yeah, and was not expecting the weather to be as nice, if not maybe even a little bit nicer than DC, because of course DC the humidity's worse, and so I'm digging on this.
Nice.
But while you're stirring, I'm gonna drop right in because, uh, as per usual, I always feel like, man, this week was intense, and I just can't get worse, and yet here we are. But as I was trying to figure out, what's the theme this week, sort of three things came to mind, which might be the same three sort of themes really every week with this administration. But we've got corruption, we've got incompetence, and then we've got what the fudge, or the meme of the week. Wow, that's fantastic. But we're gonna come back to that. We'll come back to that.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. WTF? So okay, let's start with corruption. Trump was in the Middle East, of course, this week. His first overseas trip as president, and for the second time, his first overseas trip as president was to the Middle East, which is unusual for American presidents. We start out in Saudi Arabia, and he started out with announcing crazy deals in Saudi Arabia, and it kind of just got worse from there. But the thing
How
that
so?
really stuck out to me is that he brought this huge delegation of American businessmen, which is actually not unusual in these kinds of trips.
Especially in
However,
Saudi Arabia.
Elon Musk, what's that?
I would say especially to Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's all. I mean, they're there to wheel and deal.
Exactly. I mean, what's not to love? I think, did you see there was some footage? There were camels. There was like a camel parade or
Oh
some
God.
kind of honored
No.
camel parade. Yes, there were camels. There were horses. There was some kind of sword dance. There was a lot happening. Okay, that might have been at UAE. I'm not clear exactly on which country provided that kind of welcome, but regardless, in Saudi Arabia, Elon Musk announced that Starlink had cut a deal. One of his companies had cut a deal to be licensed to provide services in Saudi Arabia. And this is the thing about Elon Musk to me, which is this guy figured out sooner that there were going to be no guardrails in this administration, and there was just going to be open season. And so he
Yeah.
helped out Trump by being his heat shield on Doge. And guess what? He is collecting the paychecks.
Yeah, and he was collecting it even when he was there. And then the thing is, like, just because he's gone doesn't mean he's not still collecting on the payment, right? I mean,
Exactly.
service is rendered. So
Right.
I think
And this is the fee. I don't need a
uh,
salary.
the thing is, like, God, if you're Trump, like, you are, I mean, he maybe doesn't, but he's got to feel like at some point going to be like, I got to get in on this. And he may be, all right, because it's like Trump doesn't let anything go for free either, right?
Oh,
He's a,
absolutely not.
so,
Absolutely not. I mean, and so that's what's interesting, right? With the Qatari jet, right? It
right.
was like, oh, they just want to give it to me because
Oh, yeah.
they,
People just are nice. So, yeah, they just want to, like, why wouldn't you just take it? Okay, if someone was walking down the street and said, here's this, like, I don't know, it's not even $400 million plane. They gave you $1,000 handbag. You would be like,
what do you want from me?
what do you want?
What do you want for this?
Exactly. But
Oh, nothing, nothing. You know what? It's just going to look so good on your arm. It's going to look
yeah,
so good.
exactly. I mean, look, take this bag. It's much better on you than me. It doesn't happen. So I really don't. It is the Qataris have been actually doing this
This is
across
me.
the world. So this is not new for them.
There
You
you are.
froze you froze on me for a bit.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I can tell. Um, so pick it up.
Pick it up.
So
Yeah. So, like, yeah, the Qataris are doing what they do with everyone. They buy off everyone, frankly. And folks should know, right? They laundered money through Israel to fund Hamas, and then
right.
for Bibi's purposes of nonstop war. So I mean, there's crazy. This is not news. So the question is, what do they want from Trump? Because they don't send money around to people without kind of payment in kind, in one
No,
form or another, and nor
no.
should you expect them to. And if you think it's just because Trump is so great, then you're insane, because that's not how the world works.
Well, that's not how Trump's world works. The
Exactly,
man is
especially his world.
entirely
Yeah.
transactional. And so this idea that he operates in a 100% transactional manner, and yet with the Qataris, they're like, no, they just want to give me a plane because
Yeah.
we're friends. You're like,
But by the
what?
way, they've been trying to sell this plane for like over a decade. No one wants this shit. So they're like, hey, this tacky ass shit, maybe Trump will like it. So that's another addendum to the story, which is all kind of sketchy. But he's not the only one, right? You mentioned Elon Musk. Pam Bondi has an issue with Qatar, with making money off of them, right?
Well,
Like,
here's the whole thing with Pam Bondi and that plane. So, of course, the Justice Department had to render a decision that, of course, this is all fine and
uh,
above board. Of course, it's fine.
no
Oh,
problem
right before Pam Bondi was Attorney General, she was collecting $115,000 per month,
per month.
per
Thank you,
month,
per month.
per
That's
month
crazy. No
as a
one's that good at their
consultant,
job.
as a lobbyist for the Qatari government.
Oh my god.
So, does it surprise anybody? But setting aside the what do they want from us and the connections to actual terrorists, I thought that this administration was concerned about anti-Semitism and the Jewish people. Oh, whoops, maybe not.
Maybe not. I mean, Hamas, one of the primary funders of Hamas,
Hezbollah.
is Qatar, and Hamas has said explicitly they want to eradicate Jews. So
Correct.
there you go. So
Eradicate,
when it
yes.
comes to when it comes to Columbia or Harvard, we're very concerned about anti-Semitism. But when it comes to getting a $400 million plane or $100,000 a month, retainers for lobbying, the Qataris and Hamas are fine. So,
Correct.
right.
But it's
So you go,
also
I don't know.
interesting. I
Seems
mean,
reasonable.
the interesting thing to me is how easily Trump's bought off. So you just talked about the Qataris giving him a plane they've been trying to unload for like 15 years or whatever it is. And they kind of found a ticket, like, you know what, let's give it to Trump. And like, we'll buy him off. And
Oh,
also,
solves two problems for us. We've had this $400 million plane we don't know what to do with.
Hey, listen, the Saudis did it much cheaper. They just got him a mobile McDonald's unit. That's
Oh,
all it
yes.
took. How
You know
it's
what? I'm not even gonna lie. You get me McNuggets on the run. I might be there. I might be there if I can get McNuggets on the run.
well, if it's Trump's mobile unit though, he's all about the burgers, man. So you'd get upcharged, right?
Oh
For
yeah,
nuggets
yeah.
on the
Fine,
run.
fine.
It'd be
I'll
an
do it.
upcharge.
That would be great.
I think you should. But apart from the Saudi Arabian deal that Elon Musk cut, there was a great story in ProPublica this week about Elon Musk. I don't know if you saw this. Elon Musk and how our State Department. Now, remember, one of perhaps the first thing that Doge did was go in and like shut down USAID, right? Cut
Right.
that off
That's the
right
biggest
to the
news
root,
from the jump.
right? That was like the first thing they did. And now it's coming out that the State Department, our diplomats, right, while their budgets are being cut and our ability to exert soft power through USAID has been literally decimated,
Compromised.
our diplomats are twisting the arms of government officials in other countries to sell or to purchase Starlink for their satellite needs.
Right.
And the fact that this has happened in no fewer, this is just what we know so far. This has
Right.
happened in a minimum of 4 countries so far, that our government is essentially the sales guy on behalf of Starlink. Again, going back to Elon Musk, not doing anything for free. He's getting his payday in the form of hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts for his privately held company.
Right. There are no guardrails, right? You mentioned that earlier, and I think that's exciting for people who can get on the inside. That's why you could have huge dinners for crypto because they're like, hey, my stuff is sketchy as fuck. So if I can just sort of get on the inside, not only will they look the other way, maybe they'll sell my stuff for me. Right? And it is crazy, but I do think this is how they operate in the sense that there's just so much you cannot keep up with it. Earlier we talked about a couple conversations ago where we're like, hey, can you let's not forget things that happened 100 days ago at the 100 days because it is it is so overwhelming. But you kind of need folks to keep bringing it up because
Mhm.
they count on it being forgotten through sheer volume.
It's true. And you have the Qatari stuff. And I was just thinking about this. You think about the foreign influence, right? And so the crypto, there are stories, and it's obvious, right? Because crypto is totally not reported. And so you
Yeah,
have no idea who's buying into this. We were talking about the visit to
that's
the White
that's
House,
the feature.
or sorry, the crypto VIP dinner or whatever last week. We don't actually know about who is investing in this. Meanwhile, the Trump family has cleared what, $100 million just on the fees, right? Like
Fees. This is
that's
not like appreciation of the coin.
correct. So that's just money they have collected along the way.
Which
And
I don't
meanwhile,
understand. It's like this is you pay a fee to get the money you already it's guys, if your grandparents came to you and said, "Hey, my friend came to me with this deal. I have to pay them this much money to then get this much money back. That is less money than I already had."
Mhm.
Does that sound like a great deal?
I don't, I'm not a
But
genius,
the point is
but
it is. It could be a great deal if you're getting something in return.
correct, which is where the sort of sleight of hand is coming in this. But the interesting thing to me about thinking about this foreign influence stuff, whether it's the Qataris or the Saudis or how we're shaking down foreign governments to, make sure Elon gets a piece, you know, this administration came in. Remember, Trump accused Hillary of being in the pocket of foreign governments while we had Russia interfering in the 2016 election. And now, 8 years later, 9 years later, this administration is going after capital D Democratic Party Infrastructure Act Blue, claiming foreign interference and
Right.
illegal foreign contributions. Meanwhile, They're just taking it through the front door.
Yeah, but like someone said, if they're accusing, they're doing.
Yes, every accusation is a confession, right?
Yes.
And here we are. But that makes me think of another thing with this administration, but not Trump himself, which is
We
our
got to.
glorious
We got to.
Secretary of Health and Human
We got
Services.
to. Yes.
Okay. Wall
That
Street
was a
Journal.
mess. That was a
Oh my
mess.
gosh, he's a
Because,
mess.
well, I mean, okay, so like the facts, right? So we have this guy who's in charge, technically in charge. Well, and Senator Alsobrooks said he is basically not in charge and completely not worthy of the job. And under his watch, right? How many measles deaths have we had before he, before 20, in the last, 2001 and 2015, 17, about 1,800 cases, no deaths, right? And so thus far, in just a short amount of time, just this year, what,
This year.
over 1,000 cases and 3 deaths.
Right. Right. But the thing about this is he is claiming that this is the same as it is every year, which is
No,
absolutely a
not,
ball-faced lie. It is
yes,
just not true. Now, with RFK, in some cases, it's not really clear if he's lying and he knows what he's saying is wrong, or if he literally doesn't know. Because Angela also Brooks, the new senator from Maryland, in RFK was testifying up on the Hill this week about the proposed budget for the next fiscal year, and she literally had to tell him that the program
indeed.
Safe to Sleep, which is, by the way, a program that's been in place for 30 years and is designed it's an educational program so that SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, so
Yes,
babies in cribs don't die
right.
in their sleep, right? They zeroed out and fired all the people. Well, guess what? The institute that oversees it was named for and created by RFK's aunt, right? So, this is kind of
Right.
a disaster.
But the thing is, and my favorite thing though, when in that, because that conversation, the testimony and the question by Senator Alsobrooks was just from the jump. She went after him because basically she said, you know, she went after him because at the beginning of his testimony and talking to Senator Cassidy, he basically said, Senator Cassidy, how are we going to keep up? How are we going to keep healthcare going to keep up? How is our research? How are we going to keep innovating on things? The National Institutes of Health specifically, when you're making cuts, and he was like, well, they don't spend money on DEI, and you're just like, what the, ultimately it was just insane. He's like, well, because we don't have to spend money on, I don't know, asymmetric outcomes for people. Like, different people have different reactions to different things. That's just life. If we were all the same, it would be no big deal. But he just was like, oh, we're not going to spend it on DEI, which is like, if there are certain outcomes that are different for women than men, they're not going to look into it. If there are certain outcomes that are different from people of color, Black folks who have higher rates of certain different diseases, not interested, right? It's just going to be we're not going to look at that type of testing because it's DEI, which, it's, again, it is short. It is the way to be racist without being called racist these days.
Exactly. Well, but the other thing about RFK, and this is, I wish there was more and better coverage of this, which is the day after the hearing, the HHS announced that they were going to be opening an investigation into
Yes. Oh my
mifepristone,
God.
which is part of what people take in order to, it's basically medication abortion, right? So it's the first of two drugs that people take. And now, after over 30 years of this being safely used, they're now looking into the safety of it based on
Based
a
on
study that the anti-choice movement
one
has put
study.
forward, which the data is bad.
What? First of all, that study, by the way, has not been peer reviewed, has not been published in any scientific journal. It's just as if, just wait for the Holdra twin study on this is bullshit. We're going to release that and see if that gets entered into the Senate record. But essentially, the study, there, it is so insane the things that they are called complications in the study. People should read about it. It's hack science. It really is, and they're using this, and actually have been caught on calls saying they're using this to start dismantling um, medication abortion, and specifically they said, oh no, they're attacking telehealth as the first step, but they're like, that's not really it. They're trying to take it
No.
away. They're using telehealth as the first thing, and then they're going to try to take it away. And they have said as much on these calls. But it is based on a study that is absolute horseshit that really could have been written by Heather Holdridge, no offense, or
No,
Larry Fink.
I mean,
No
yeah,
offense, absolutely, to
how
me.
dare you?
But it's like, no, it is it is insane, but that they're using one study after, I believe there's probably over 100 studies that talk about the safety.
Well, and we have data of women
It's
actually
30 years
using
of
the
use,
drug.
not even studies. It's field data,
Yes, correct.
which is way
That's the
more
data
nice.
we have.
Yeah, the best data is field data.
Correct. The other thing, there are two things I just want to add about this. One is, during the campaign, everyone's like, oh, national abortion ban, Trump
No,
15-week
never.
abortion
No.
ban, blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like, that'll never happen because they'll never pass it in the Senate. That's accurate. But this was always the way. This was
Yes.
always the way that they were going to attack national access to abortion. And just so people understand this, more than 50% of all abortions that happen in the United States are medication abortion. So
Right.
if you take this away as an accepted and approved drug for people
And
to
safe.
use and safe, which it is, then guess what? You are actually going to take access away from hundreds of thousands of women every single year in this country. And it doesn't matter what state you live
And their
in.
families and their partners, right? Because it is so much bigger than that. It is about families. It is about how it impacts families. So, but look, it's like, well, I mean, there's always a study apparently, and that they're happy to sort of, but it's always interesting. It's like, let's restrict access here, but God forbid we talk about access to actually weapons that are killing people, right? You can't do a background. Let's not have universal background checks. Let's not have to, because we don't want to infringe upon that. But let's make sure that we create a hack study to go after people's health.
Correct.
That makes total sense.
I want to say one other thing about this development and just look at the bigger picture here. I actually spent a little time looking at the Office of Women's Health at HHS's website. The top 4 links, if you go to the Office of Women's Health and HHS, are all about protecting women from transgender people.
Yes.
Okay, you know why? Because they don't actually have anything to say about women's health that they're promoting, because they're taking away access to reproductive health care and abortion and research on women's health and research on breast cancer and things like protecting our babies against dying. And so they're leading with a thing that nobody cares about. Riley Gaines is literally the first thing you see. That swimmer from I don't remember what state who's
Yeah.
still upset
No one
because
cares.
of
No
a
one
something
cares.
something blah blah blah. I'm angry, right? And so it's just infuriating that this is where we are, and yet we have to keep pointing this stuff out so that we make sure people understand when they're taking away access to resources, support, and rights, that this is what's happening while they're, I don't know, talking about mobile McDonald's units that were served up to the president in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so I do want to point out as we shift into a little bit more of the economic situation here, a couple things. One is consumer sentiment new numbers came out, and they are the second lowest on record ever. They continue to go down. People are waiting for increased prices to hit. Walmart actually announced this week that they were going to be raising prices, and so we really do expect that people are going to start seeing and feeling this in the next couple of weeks. But the other thing that just hit the end of today, and this is relevant about what happened on Capitol Hill this week, is that Moody's just downgraded the US credit rating. Why? Because they are concerned about the level of debt that we have and interest rates remain high. And guess what? They're going to remain high for a while because we have been thrown into such uncertain economic space with the tariffs. The problem that the Trump administration and Republicans on Capitol Hill have is they're trying to pass this one big, beautiful bill that is
which they're
going to
having
add
problems with.
$4.5 trillion to the debt. Larry, what's going on with this bill? They obviously kind of shut it all down this week because they literally couldn't pass it out of committee.
Well, they couldn't get it out. Part of it is the issue with the bill is, right, Republicans always talk about their fiscal like responsibility, and in reality it is just like if you were to say, hey, let's not really cut anything. This is my house. I just want to keep all the things I really like, but I don't want to work anymore and not make any money. Because that's what they're saying. It's like, okay, there's no, let's reduce the funding streams, and let's, especially on the people, on billionaires and millionaires specifically, right? Let's like give them more of their money, but let's continue to fund all this stuff because I can't get rid of all of it. And let's see if we can get rid of it for at least the poor people, but that's actually not enough cuts to fund the rich people.
Correct.
And so they are falling up, they are having trouble even getting out of committee because the moderates are already upset about the cuts because guess what?
They're going to lose.
They care about their jobs. They want to keep their seats.
They're going to
And
lose.
then the crazies who are gerrymandered to the nines and protected forever, they want to cut more. And they want to just like do more terrible things to people. So they can't get consensus. And right now, who knows, right? But like even the right is pissed. The quote unquote moderates, Republicans, are concerned or scared. Usually the pissed people win over the scared people, by the way. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can't even get it passed. So it's sort of sitting there and no one knows what's happening.
But it is worth pointing out that people like Steve Bannon, Laura Loomer, I mean,
oh, ciao.
Sure. Yes. You don't even need to say it. And also, but Steve Bannon, Laura Loomer, and people like Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, they're saying, hey, these cuts to Medicaid,
not a good idea.
They're going to hurt our people, and they're going to notice. They don't care about them hurting people. What they do care about is they understand that the politics of this could get really bad really fast. And I think Republicans have certainly internalized no cuts to Medicare, no cuts to Social Security. Trump said he wasn't going to cut Medicaid. But then he's like, get it done. And it's like, these two things are in conflict with each other because you can only get one of those, right? And his people are going to get hurt. And Democrats, if there's one thing that they actually still have advantage on, it's healthcare.
Yes.
So,
and you know what? The thing is, part of it is for someone like Steve Bannon, he's looking at the political realignment that happened over every time Trump's run. He has made gains with lower educated working class folks. That's where the big gains have come. And they will hit these folks disproportionately. Right?
Exactly.
So it's like, are they going to do fan service to their donors? And are they going to worry about the people who actually voted for them? Right? And they over time have gotten greater misalignment in that. And I think that is something they don't fully understand yet. Yeah. And by the way, these folks may not turn out in a midterm if it's not Trump. So they may be screwed anyway.
So before we move on to the WTF portion of this.
Oh my God, this is the best.
Well, I do want to point out that Penn Wharton, which just, because it's, we always like a little irony here, is of course President Trump's alma mater. They just put out a study and they found that people making between $17,000 and $51,000 could lose about $700 on average in after-tax income. So that factors in both the benefits and whatever tax cuts will be coming to them. Meanwhile, the top 0.1% will clear more than $389,000. So that's what they are going to try to sell to the American people while they're cutting off upwards of 13 or 14 million people from healthcare, shuttering rural hospitals, right? I mean, it's going to be
say tax cuts and hope people assume it's for them, and it won't be.
Well, and it won't be. So I got to get to a what WTF portion here.
My favorite.
All right. So first of
Okay.
all, there was a meme that was sent around, and I was on the floor. So this guy did a, a TikTok about how much better his family chats had gotten since he told his mom that WTF stands for "Wow, that's fantastic." And so I think his mom is using it liberally. Wow, that's fantastic. I mean WTF in the more traditional sense.
Yes.
And
This
I
is
want
great.
to I want to talk about the both Christy Nome, and it was confirmed within DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, that they are literally talking about and in development
In
on
develop they have been
in development.
pitched. They have been pitched.
They've been pitched on a reality TV show that would, I think, immigrants would compete, and if you win, then you get citizenship. Is that
Citizenship.
how it
Yeah,
works?
not The Onion. This is actually what's going on. So, a television producer, and it's in the Wall Street Journal, so
Well,
no sort of left wing rag, right? And they're working with DHS to develop a show and pitch the show where you just have people who are immigrants compete, and whoever wins is the most worthy of being a citizen of America, which in fact feels very pretty on brand. Mark Burnett is not in charge of this, sadly.
He's special envoy to London now. He's
He's a
busy,
special
Larry.
envoy
He's
envoy
busy.
to the UK. That was his payment for keeping silent about whatever the shit he knows about Trump from The Apprentice. But yeah, this I really thought it was a joke, but in fact it is not.
It's
So
not the Onion. It's not the Onion. So that's
not
insane.
the end.
And and that's not funny, but this is also less funny, which is there is a proposal that Trump himself has made uh, re um, to remove and to resettle over 1 million Palestinians from Gaza Strip into Libya. And he's offering
Because
money to the Libyans because he wants to develop the real estate. It's first of all, this is not a solution that centers the Palestinians
of
at
course not.
all,
That's not about never was
but
about that.
also it's actually not going to solve the politics of the region, and it's not going to benefit the United States at all
Well, I
long
mean, look,
term.
it's the same sort. It is absurd. He has no idea what he's doing there. I mean, my understanding is the recent reports was that when um, they had said when the hostage, the American hostage, Alexander was released, that they had promised Hamas, which again, a whole different conversation, that they would sort of start help getting Israel to de-escalate the situation, and then they just basically reneged. So there's just I don't know. They don't have a coherent plan. I will say, having just been in Israel and in the Middle East, the one thing they do like about them is they can maybe make a deal, but who knows how long the deal will last. That's the problem.
Yeah,
There's
that's the
no honor
problem.
amongst thieves, people.
Yes, perfect.
So,
Which
well, as we move, we were talking about reality, that we should let's move to pop culture and sort of see.
this is kind of dark, but
It
sure,
is
let's
very
talk
dark,
about
but
pop
I feel like
culture,
it has to
Larry.
be discussed. The biggest thing, obviously, one of the biggest things this week is the Puffy trial, Sean Puffy Combs trial for all his various terrible crimes. I mean, I actually don't. Cassie, I think his ex partner, she just wrapped up 20 hours of testimony. As you would expect, she was made to, you know, you villainize the victim, which is what the defense tried to do. Held up under, weren't necessarily new things here. But what I was taken by just generally is that despite all that we know and have seen on video of what Puffy's behavior and what he's like and what is and all that's been reported, there are huge groups of people at the trial cheering and supporting Sean Puffy Combs. It is
I mean,
amazing
come
to
on,
me.
man, that's America,
It is
you
so
know?
crazy to me. Look, hey, I've never been a fan of his as a rapper. As a producer, though, Mo Money, Mo Problems, I actually pretended like that song was about me, even though I had not a nickel to my name. I was singing that song like it was about me.
But
That
did
I
you have
had
a
more
lot of
money.
problems?
Yeah, I didn't have
No
enough money
money,
for
no
problems,
problems.
but I really thought I did. And so I get enjoying the art, but holy shit, why are you sitting there? You don't have anything better to do than get out there and like support this crazy criminal. It is wild to me. So the trial's been going on. All this stuff is coming out to light. A lot of it we already know. It is an important trial in the sense that like it does display how much people are willing to be silent in the presence of power, right?
Mm,
So
mhm, mhm.
Cassie was partner, and it's complicated as a partner. But there was just the next set of testimony from someone in the orbit was from Don Richards, I believe, who was in Making the Band. If you watched a lot of reality, I did. I watched Making the Band, and Don was in the band. Then she worked with Puffy, and she talked about how she saw this stuff firsthand. They asked her why she didn't say anything. She's like, "I was afraid. I didn't know what would happen to me." And that can mean a lot of things, but it's her career. That's she's
Yeah,
trying to make it in the industry. And
sure.
then this man is insane and beating people in front of her and not worrying about it. It's not like he even tried to hide his behavior from people. So that's what's crazy to me. There is no hiding of the behavior, but no one, very few people said anything. I think there are a few people who intimated it over the years. I think Wendy Williams said some things, and then she really they tried to silence her. There are
Sure.
all these other issues with Wendy Williams, but let's not go there. But it is
Yeah.
about power and how it can impact behavior in this country. Trump's an
Mhm.
example of that as well, obviously.
100% for sure. Well, I've seen sort of headlines day to day, but I haven't paid a lot of attention to it because it really is dark, and
It's
it is a
awful.
demonstration where it is, if you want to put it in the broader Me Too container, because there haven't been a lot of high profile trials or stories of that of late, but this certainly started at the height of that. And to see now this testimony and this gut wrenching experiences of this woman, it's really it's hard to watch, and it's hard to just take it all in about the culture that
Yes.
allows this all to happen. Um,
Right.
I do want to jump to, before we go, the fight back, right? Because we always
Yes.
try to end on a positive note about where we see seeds of hope. First thing is, and this just happened this afternoon, the Supreme Court actually really put the brakes on the Trump administration's ability to use the Alien Enemies Act to be deporting. I'm sorry, renditioning. That's a better word. Renditioning folks to Venezuela, or sorry, excuse me, to El Salvador, with through his agreement with the world's coolest dictator. Um, and so it's good to see that the Supreme Court is standing up and saying, "Hold on, like we need to, take a deeper look at the process here, and you can't be invoking an 18th century law that requires a declaration of invasion and insurrection in order for you to be exercising it, because that's not what's happening here." So that's a good development, even though the birthright citizenship uh, oral arguments that happened earlier this week were, honestly, it seems like a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of
Yes.
how that might come down. Maybe not on birthright citizenship, but certainly on the ability of the
Procedural.
courts to push back the procedural stuff, the kind of technical pieces of this. But the other two, I kind of want to say, are big wins. The first is GAO, the Government Accountability Office. Doge, again, Elon might not be front and center anymore, but Doge is continuing kind of working its way through the government and trying to destroy everything. They went to the Government Accountability Office, whose entire job is to find waste in the government and to save taxpayers money. They have saved $725 billion over
Yes.
the last 14 or 15 years, which is more than we can say for what Elon has been doing.
Yeah, Elon Musk's Doge has not done that.
No,
They
they
made
have
up
not.
numbers.
They have not. But anyway, Doge tried to bust into GAO earlier this week, and GAO said, nah, we're actually part of the legislative branch. So you do not have authority over us. Why don't you go tell the people that we are part of the legislative branch? We will report that you have come to say hello to us and have tea to our congressional leaders. But thanks, no thanks. You have no authority nor right to be here, which was a very heartening thing to see. And similarly, this happened last weekend where the Trump administration fired the head of the Library of Congress, which actually he does have the authority to do. But he also
They
fired the head of the Copyright Office and then tried to replace the head of the Library of Congress with his personal defense attorney from his trial in New York State, who is now an associate. What is he? Associate
yeah, I
uh,
don't know.
attorney general at
AG?
DOJ. He's like number 2 or number 3 at DOJ now. Tried to put him in, and Congress was like, no, no, you do not have the authority to do that.
But also like replacing the Library of Congress person base it look, it's also stupid. I think they think they take care of books and they don't, which is also just the idiocy of it all. But
Yeah.
I have finished my drink.
Well, I
Oh,
refilled, so that's fine.
you have some.
But so we're going to I will let you know how the rest of the weekend goes in the
Have
great
fun.
city of
Enjoy
Boston.
Boston.
But enjoy your weekend out on the West Coast, and we will be back next week heading into a holiday weekend. And hopefully things will be less dark. I don't know. I'm
No,
not
no,
betting on it.
no.
I'll have a
Just
full bar again, so that'll be good.
oh yes. Good to be optimistic, Heather. Have a good one. Enjoy your friends.
Take care. Bye.